Biography of Elon Musk. His full name is Elon Reeve Musk. Birth date is June 28, 1971. Birthplace: Pretoria, South Africa. His parents are May Musk, a Canadian-born model and dietitian, and Earl Musk, an electromechanical engineer born in South Africa. He have two siblings, Kimball Musk, who is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and restaurateur; Tosca Musk, an South African-Canadian filmmaker. Elon Musk's childhood and his upbringing. Elon Musk as a child, his mother described him as a quiet child. His mother thought that he might be deaf due to his introversion because his siblings were outgoing. He was also described as a bookish, awkward young man, and he was interested in computer and sci-fi. At the age of 10, his parents got divorced. After that, he lived mostly with his father in South Africa. Elon Musk, his father, was reportedly tough with his children, to the point of abuse, often lecturing Musk and his brother for hours. Elon Musk attended the following school: Waterkloof House Preparatory School in Pretoria, South Africa; Pretoria Boys High School in Pretoria, South Africa; Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario; University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School, and Stanford University. He said that he was bullied when he is in South Africa. I quote one of his statements in an interview. He said, "I had a terrible upbringing. I had a lot of adversity growing up. One thing I worry about with my kids is they don't face enough adversity." And according to him, his school life was lonely and brutal. Once, his classmate pushed him down a concrete stairwell. In one instance, he was beaten so badly that he needed to go to the hospital. This is another one of his narrations in an interview. Said, and I quote, "They got my best friend to lure me out of hiding so they could beat me up, and that hurt. For some reason, they decided that I was it, and they were going to go after me non-stop. That's what made growing up difficult. For a number of years, there was no respite. We'd get chased around by gangs at school who tried to beat the expletive out of me, and then I'd come home, and it would just be awful there as well." When he was 10, they got an inexpensive home computer, which was the Commodore VIC-20. Using that, he became acquainted with programming. So he managed to create Blaster. Blaster is a video game, and the basic code of the game was sold to a magazine called PC and Office Technology for $500. At the age of 70, he moved to Canada to avoid serving in South African Army and to also escape from his life in South Africa. Elon Musk's college life. Musk enrolled in Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. There, he met Justin Wilson, an aspiring writer. Later, they married and have 5 sons together, twins and triplets, before divorcing in 2008. After 2 years after he enrolled in Queen's University, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. He got the Bachelor of Science in Physics, as well as the Bachelor of Arts in Economics in Wharton School. Musk was 24 years old when he moved to California to pursue PhD in Applied Physics at Stanford University. But he left the PhD program after just 2 days because of his entrepreneurial visions that came with the internet exploding and Silicon Valley booming.
My name is Kim Rafael Reyes, and I will be talking about Mr. Elon Musk's life as an entrepreneur. I will go through some of his notable ventures and the origins of those ventures, as well as their significance to Mr. Musk. Now, I have here a quote by Mr. Musk when he was asked by a reporter on what is it like to be an entrepreneur. He stated, "Being an entrepreneur is like eating glass and staring into the abyss of death." For Mr. Musk, being an entrepreneur is a very hard thing to do. It requires a lot of planning, strategizing, lots of risk taking, and of course, it requires a lot of courage to be successful in your chosen venture. So what is Elon Musk today? His net worth is $22.8 billion, and he was ranked 54th richest person in the world. In December 2016, he was ranked 21st on the Forbes list of the world's most powerful people. Some of his notable ventures include Zip2, which he founded in 1995, X.com in 1999, SpaceX in 2002, Tesla in 2004, SolarCity in 2006, OpenAI in 2015, and his most recent venture, the Boring Company, which he founded in 2016. After dropping out of Stanford in his doctorate degree in material sciences and physics, Mr. Elon Musk pursued his first venture, or his startup company, in 1995, which he named Zip2. So it provided searchable directory that could be considered as the internet version of the Yellow Pages. His brother Kimball Musk and Gregory Curry, a close friend, helped him run the company. However, Elon Musk was replaced by a much more experienced entrepreneur, Richard Sorkin, as Chief Executive Officer. However, he remained as CTO, or Chief Technology Officer, when a much bigger company, Compaq Computer Corp, purchased Zip2 for $307 million. Elon Musk walked away with $22 million at the age of 28 years old. His next venture was named X.com, which he founded in November 1999. It was one of the world's first online bank, and it allows users to send money using email and the web. It was merged with Confinity in March 2000. Confinity was the first rival company of X.com, and in September 2000, Elon Musk was replaced by Peter Thiel, the man on the left of the photo. He is the co-founder of Confinity, and in June 2001, it was X.com was renamed as PayPal. Musk founded his third company, Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, or SpaceX, in the year 2002. SpaceX has the intention of building spacecrafts for commercial space travel. It started out with $100 million from the sale of X.com or PayPal, and it's currently worth $20 billion. So according to Elon Musk, one of the mission of SpaceX is to enable humans to become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species by building a self-sustaining city on Mars. So the launching of rockets by SpaceX is a very popular event and it's televised internationally. On May 22, 2012, Musk and SpaceX made history when the company launched its first Falcon 9 rocket into space with an unmanned capsule. The vehicle was sent to the International Space Station with 1,000 pounds of supplies for the astronauts there, making it the first time a private company had sent a spacecraft to the International Space Station. Another one of his world-renowned ventures is Tesla. Elon Musk is the co-founder, chief executive officer, and product architect at Tesla Motors. Tesla specializes in the production of electric cars and other battery products. In 2008, the company unveiled the Roadster, which is a sports car capable of accelerating from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.7 seconds, as shown in the lower right of the screen. Tesla, to this date, is worth $2.2 billion. His next venture is Solar City. It is founded by Peter and London Rice in 2006, but it was Elon Musk who funded and guided the company. Solar City specializes in energy services such as solar panels. By 2009, it generated 440 megawatts of power, and it merged with Tesla in the year 2016. So the acquisition of Solar City was part of Elon Musk's effort to promote and advance sustainable energy. His next venture is OpenAI, which he founded in the late 2015 with his partner Sam Altman. It aims to promote friendly artificial intelligence, but Musk left his seat in 2018, stating that there will be a conflict of interest in the future because of his Tesla artificial intelligence. So his recent venture is named The Boring Company. It is a tunnel construction company founded by Elon Musk himself in 2016. He got the idea from the worsening traffic around cities. He posted in his Twitter account that he was so sick of the heavy traffic and just wants to dig a hole underground just to avoid the traffic. He spends most of his time in this particular company. That's why he labeled it as his personal hobby. Even though the Boring Company is still in its early stages because it was just founded in 2016, it was rumored that it was worth $16 billion already. The reason being is that it was selected as Chicago's contractor for its upcoming high-speed downtown O'Hare transport line. So that's some of the most notable ventures by Elon Musk. Thank you, and that would be all.
Challenges and struggles encountered Elon Musk during the start and the later in expansion of his business. So, failure with Tesla. So, Tesla was entirely under incredible pressure in 2008. The Model S, the company's first from-scratch design, was here away, and it was clear that the original Roadster wasn't going to fund the company's growth. So Musk had sunk all his money from the sale of PayPal to the eBay into Tesla. By the end of 2008, the company was running the fumes on an 11-hour funding round saved the car maker from bankruptcy and crisis averted, but it would be 4 long years before the Model S would arrive. So Tesla is voluntarily recalls 103,000 Model S cars over the faulty steering component. So uh, this problem is limited to the Model S cars only built before April 2016. Tesla said Model X and Model 3 are not included in this recall. So shares of Tesla will nearly 4% in after our trade on Thursday. An email to customer. Uh, the electric car The electric automator explained that it has been excessive corrosion in the power steering bolts of the affected vehicles. Tesla said that if the bolts fail, the driver would still be able to steer the car, but would have to use the increased force. This primarily makes the car harder to drive in low speeds, but for parallel parking does not materially affect the control at high speed, where only small steering wheel force is needed. So Tesla said it has only seemed to be a problem for in very cold climates, where road salts are commonly used. But the company said it was recalling all affected vehicles regardless of climate to account for the possibility that vehicle may later be used in highly corrosive environment. So failure with SpaceX. So SpaceX, which Elon Musk's rocket-making company, almost died without launching a single rocket. They had the funding for 3 rocket launches, and even if one were successful, they could not get additional round of funding from NASA. They failed all 3 times, and the employees were and shattered, and some were even crying. So in 2006, first SpaceX launch fails just 33 seconds after liftoff caused a rusty nut. This video provides a blurry view looking down from a rocket until it explodes. So in 2007, the company next chance is to establish a credibility also ends in failure. The engine shut down prematurely and the rocket fails to reach orbit. SpaceX is 0 for 2. So in 2008, the ferrying ashes in the Starstruck James Scott into the space should have been made a great publicity for SpaceX if the payload hadn't ended at the sea. Instead, this video captures the moment when two of the rocket stages separate and collide, sending the craft into an uncontrollable spin. Also on board was SpaceX's first payload for NASA. So, in 2015, the SpaceX rocket vaporized shortly after launch. It was June 28th, the birthday of company's founder Elon Musk. On board were 2 payloads for NASA destined for the International Space Station. NASA has since negotiated significant discounts on its SpaceX contracts. so soon after SpaceX would safely return a vertical rocket to the ground, one of the company's key goals, but not before repeated failures like this. So in 2016, SpaceX loses a rocket before launching after the vehicle explodes during fueling. So as Musk likely sees it, uh, this is just another setback on the road to turning humans into interplanetary species. And whatever you think of his plans, SpaceX remains on course for success despite multiple expensive failures. So, so with all the failures that Elon Musk encountered, he quoted that something is important enough to do it even if the odds are not in your favor.
SpaceX and Tesla. You would be hard-pressed to find two companies that are more prominent today. And yet, in the not-too-distant past, both companies were basically unknown and were in fact simultaneously on the verge of bankruptcy. Today, we'll learn how Elon Musk did what no other American CEO had ever done before. He created and then rescued two companies at the same time and brought them both to multi-billion dollar valuations. In the early 2000s, Elon Musk achieved what any entrepreneur would dream of achieving. He successfully sold his company for over $1 billion. He personally received 165 million, and now this is where most people would call it quits. But for Elon, this was just the beginning. He wanted to change the world for the better, and one of his ideas was to send a greenhouse to Mars in order to boost public interest in space exploration and hopefully increase NASA's budget. The idea was outlandishly ambitious, especially because Elon wanted to spend no more than $20 million on it. Now at the time, sending just 500 pounds to orbit could easily cost upwards of $30 million, but Elon had a plan. He traveled to Russia, where he tried to buy refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles. But the lowest price the Russians gave him was $8 million apiece, about 50% above his budget for the rocket itself. On the way back from Moscow, Elon did some back-of-the-napkin calculations. He figured out that the raw materials used in the making of a rocket were only about 3% of the final sales price. Instantly, Elon knew what he had to do. If he wanted to send anything to Mars, he'd have to build himself a vertically integrated rocket company. To that end, he read several books on rocketry from the Cold War, and in June 2002, he incorporated Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX for short. He then set about recruiting the right people who could make his vision a reality. His ideal candidate was young, single, educated, and ready to give up his social life for SpaceX. Elon's recruitment strategy was very straightforward. He'd basically call up anyone fitting that profile, from fresh aerospace graduates to the rising stars in Boeing and Lockheed Martin. At first, people thought Elon was making pranks, but within a year, he had assembled some of the brightest engineers in America. Together, they would design almost everything for SpaceX, from the engines and rocket bodies to even smallest details like the circuitry. In many cases, the engineers could build stronger and more lightweight components at just a fraction of the regular price. These components would be used to build the Merlin engine, which in turn would power Elon's first rocket, the Falcon 1. Development was far from smooth, of course, but nevertheless, progress was being made. But then Elon decided to up the ante. In early 2004, he participated in the funding round of a new electric car company called Tesla. Elon personally invested a little over $6 million and in return became the chairman of the company's board. Right off the bat, Elon began applying his experience from SpaceX at Tesla. The company's logo, for example, was created by the same people that made the logo for SpaceX. And of course, Elon was quick to use the same aggressive hiring strategy he used to assemble the SpaceX team. This time, however, instead of poaching employees from Boeing, he was hiring from Apple. Before long, the Tesla team was working on their first electrical car, the Tesla Roadster. Back at SpaceX, engineers were clocking in 60-hour work weeks, while Elon was promising very ambitious timeline. In fact, his original estimate was to launch the Falcon 1 in November 2003, just 18 months after the company was founded. Of course, that estimate got pushed back and the Falcon 1 wouldn't lift off until March 2006, when it spent a total of 41 seconds in the air before crashing down violently. Like for SpaceX, 2006 was a big year for Tesla. In July, the Tesla Roadster made its first official appearance and recorded 100 pre-orders in its first day. But like with the Falcon 1, the actual production wasn't going very well. Tesla's CEO at the time was Martin Eberhard, and like Elon, he was promising unrealistic timeframes. At first, the idea was to deliver the Roadster in early 2007, but an escalating series of production issues pushed the release date farther and farther away. In the end, Martin's mismanagement of the Roadster project got him ousted from the very company he had founded, leaving Elon in charge of everything. With full responsibility over both companies, the stress was starting to pile up. Elon witnessed the second failure of the Falcon 1 rocket, which didn't complete its only 2007 flight. At Tesla, Elon struggled fixing the mess left behind by Eberhard, and in fact, the Roadster's production would not begin until March 2008. But then, things got worse. In August, Elon launched his third Falcon 1, which never made it to orbit, and then just 1 month later, his wife publicly announced their divorce. Both of Elon's companies were struggling to make a viable product and were running out of money fast. In fact, by late October, Tesla had only $9 million left to fund the entire company. Salaries were being delayed and Elon was faced with a choice. He had already spent $70 million on Tesla and $100 million on SpaceX. With what little he had left, Elon had to choose whether to fund and secure the future of one company or to risk everything and gamble on saving both. Fate gave Elon little time to think. The fourth and potentially final flight of the Falcon 1 was approaching. On September 28, Elon got ready for his last chance to survive. He stood in the SpaceX Control Center in LA and waited in silence. Then, the rocket took off, and the center burst out in ecstatic applause. SpaceX had finally delivered a working product. The Falcon 1 became the first privately developed rocket to go into orbit around Earth. But Elon wasn't in the clear just yet. A working product would mean nothing if the company behind it went bankrupt. In a frantic scramble, Elon had to figure out funding solutions for both his companies before the end of 2008, and the timing couldn't have been worse. One of the largest American banks, Lehman Brothers, had collapsed, and the global economy was heading towards disaster. In the midst of this, Elon was raising all the personal funds he could to save Tesla. He liquidated his few remaining assets and even got his cousins to pitch in. But getting investors on board doesn't happen overnight, and December was creeping in. Elon had managed to scrape together $20 million himself, another 20 from various investors, and 50 from the German car company Daimler. Days before Christmas, it seemed as if only Tesla was going to make it. But then, on December 23, Elon received a very unexpected call. NASA had awarded SpaceX with a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. Then, on Christmas Eve, the Tesla deal went through. Elon had successfully saved both companies from bankruptcy. In later interviews, he'd recalled these final days in December in painful detail. He'd admit that this was the closest he had ever gotten to a nervous breakdown, and honestly, any lesser man would have outright given up.
I remember waking up on the Sunday before Christmas in 2008 and thinking, like, damn, this is the closest I've ever gotten, you know? It was looking pretty grim because at that point, you know, even though the fourth launch of SpaceX had succeeded, we were still running out of money because we had three failures and only one success. Yeah. Still not enough. And then the financing round for Tesla had not closed, and we had only 2 days, maybe two. I think it was like 2 or 3 days, maybe, to close it before Christmas. So I was like, man, this could be a really bad end of the year. Maybe both companies will fail.
Did you cry? Screams?
No, I wasn't. No, I didn't cry.
Smashing apartment?
No.
No.
My sleep was difficult.
So regardless of the struggles Elon might be facing today, it's worth knowing that 10 years ago, he overcame the impossible.
Here we're going to discuss the key traits or characteristics of the entrepreneur that helped him or her overcome the challenges and trials that was encountered in the business. This will all be regards to Elon Musk. So we all know that Elon Musk as the brainiac who also happens to be worth almost $12 billion. But before being a billionaire, his only assets were his brain and the vision to change the world and humanity. His ideas, initially termed dreams by many, have turned into realities. He could be regarded as a serial entrepreneur, an entrepreneur who continuously comes up with new ideas and starts new businesses. Instead, we have coined a new term for him as a parallel entrepreneur. Someone who has implemented his idea parallelly in more than one industry, such as the eCash or PayPal, electric cars or the Tesla, rocket technology such as the SpaceX, and an energy service which is the Solar City. But before reaching on top of one of the tallest mountains, Musk had to go through many lows, failures, and problems. But he is on the top of the mountain because he believed that if something is important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is a failure. Here we dig deep into the lows of this real-life Tony Stark, as well as his traits on how he was able to overcome those challenges. So for the first, we have imagination. The most effective leaders have a powerful vision which they share and lay the path to achieve the vision. They are able to influence others to see their view. On top of that, ordinary people have a vision that is evolutionary, while the greatest and most effective leaders like Elon Musk have a vision that is revolutionary. They know how to leap forward, changing the game. For example, the state of California is investing in a $68 billion high-speed rail line between Los Angeles and San Francisco that will take 3 hours traveling 200 miles per hour. The project is already behind schedule. Elon Musk's response to the traffic problem is a high-speed railway known as Hyperloop, which would transport passengers from Los Angeles to San Francisco in only 30 minutes. That is 800 miles per hour, nearly 4 times faster. His plan will take 8 years to build at a cost of about $10 billion. As a child in Africa, he read about the United States in comic books and set his mind on coming. In college, he became convinced there were 3 areas that would change the future of the world for good: the internet, sustainable energy, and the ability to live outside our planet. He has stayed true these dreams because of his imagination. His imagination led to articulation of a powerful vision that made his, that turned into his goal. Next, we have confidence. The greatest leaders have unshakable self-confidence and believe in self. If you pay attention to success literature, one of the first things that the readers notice is that many successful people believe in leveraging of other people's money to finance their projects. That way, if they fail, they do not lose their personal wealth. Elon Musk has such unshakable confidence in himself and his capabilities that he uses his own money to finance his project. He invested over $100 million of his own money into SpaceX and $10 million into Solar City and at least $55 million into Tesla Motors. The next is we have integrity. The most effective leaders operate with integrity, taking the high road. Simply, integrity is who you are when nobody is looking. So, how do you handle money? How do you progress as your own? As for Elon Musk, he invested at least $55 million of his own money when he founded Tesla Motors to produce electric cars. He needed more money. So he borrowed over $400 million from the government. He repaid the loan, thanked the Department of Energy members of Congress and others who helped to make his dream a reality. So his tip for us is to make it a habit to take the high road. You have to take the risk. Kasi taking the risk gives us a chance to succeed, a chance to learn even though if you fail. Effective leaders like Elon Musk are constantly generating ideas. As a serial entrepreneur, he has created several billion-dollar companies based on his ideas alone. How does he do it? Musk is a serious reader who is able to see the interconnection of two things that others cannot see. This allows him to make a big leap forward. So, a widely cited example of this is his compensation plan at Tesla, which excludes most salary and all cash bonuses, and pays Musk in stocks option that vest only as Tesla meets operational goals set by the board. You can also see commitment in how Musk handles backlash. Consider the past hullabaloo over Tesla's fires. While Musk was quite confident in Tesla's safety in a blog post he wrote about, he took action anyway and amended the Tesla warranty.